Hello, welcome to our presentation. Today we will be sharing a research report that we conducted on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals into the curriculum at Monmouth University.
Before we jump right in, we would just like to take a moment to briefly introduce ourselves.
Hi, my name is Anna Gifyazda, and I'm a graduate student at Monmouth University's Masters of Social Work program, and I am also an intern at the Institute for Global Understanding.
And I'm Grace Joyce. I'm a senior undergraduate student at Monmouth University studying history and political science, and I'm also an intern at the Institute for Global Understanding.
This report is a project that we collaborated on in our internship at the Institute for Global Understanding, or the IGU, at Monmouth University. The IGU is an educational entity of Monmouth University that has the mission of promoting cultural literacy and citizenship through academic and arts programs, interdisciplinary research and events, community partners, and service at the global and local levels.
Our supervisor proposed the topic for this report, which was inspired by similar projects that have been done at educational institutions to generate data for United Nations academic impact to assess the progress being made to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals. A little bit more context about our university is that Monmouth University is a small private school with a student body of around 6,000 students, which offers undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral programs of study. It is located in West Long Branch, New Jersey, which is situated in central Jersey. The university is located about a mile away from the shore. The Sustainable Development Goals were developed by the United Nations in 2015. According to the United Nations, these goals establish a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The United Nations created these goals with the intent that they would be fulfilled by 2030. The implementation of the SDGs within the education system is a crucial step to accomplishing these goals, as students will soon enter the workforce and contribute to innovation in the world. It is then essential that the SDGs education is an integral part of the curriculum in all education institutions. Now is the time to turn this vision of a sustainable future into a mission at Monmouth University and all educational institutions. The goals of our research report were to assess the current implementation of the SDGs into the curriculum and identify barriers that prevented the implementation of the SDGs into the curricula at Monmouth University.
To address the two goals of our research report, we created a survey of 20 questions using a software called Qualtrics. The survey allowed us to use mixed methods of research as it contained both open-ended and closed-ended questions. The survey was administered to all full-time and part-time faculty members at Monmouth University via email. Participants were given 2 weeks to complete the short 10 to 15-minute survey and were sent a reminder a couple days prior to when the survey was scheduled to close. To analyze the quantitative data collected, we used a software called the Statistical Package for the Social Sciences to create various crosstabs and descriptive statistics to make sense of the data. While for the qualitative data collected, we recoded and typed responses and formulated trends. The image to the right is an example of what the first page of the survey looked like.
Out of the 700 faculty members at Monmouth University, we received 122 responses, and these responses represent the graduate, undergraduate, or both programs of study. And the next slide will show the academic schools represented in our research.
This slide shows the spread of academic schools represented within our data. All of the academic schools at Monmouth University are represented. The School of Humanities and Social Sciences had the largest numbers of responses, which makes sense because this is the largest academic school at Monmouth University. Overall, the representation that was collected from each school in this survey parallels the size of that program at Monmouth University.
The seventh question in the survey was, in your academic department, how many existing courses would you say reflect promotion of the SDGs across the curriculum? About half of the respondents indicated that there were 1 to 4 courses that currently reflected the SDGs within their academic school. This category was selected the most, which was then followed by 20.2% of respondents that indicated that there were 5 to 7 courses reflecting the SDGs. The category that received the least number of votes was that there were 8 or more courses offered that are reflective of the SDGs, and 15.6% of responses indicated that there are no courses that reflect the SDGs. From this data, it seems as though there are few courses that are reflective of the SDGs at Monmouth University. These trends were further evaluated using a crosstab to give the researchers a more comprehensive view of the data within each school. So this slide looks at the results from our crosstab showing the implementation by academic school of the SDGs. So both the business school and the School of Science had the largest percentage of votes stating there are no courses that reflect the SDGs, and the business school had 35.3%, and the School of Science had 29.4%. The School of Humanities and Social Sciences showed 23.7% of respondents choosing that there were no such courses. And then the School of Education and the School of Humanities and Social Sciences both had a 30.8% vote that 8 or more courses exist within their department that implement the SDGs.
Survey number 10 asks participants to please describe any potential barriers you perceive that prohibit the engagement of the SDGs in your department's curriculum. This question allowed participants to select multiple options for the list of barriers provided. Additionally, this question asked participants to further describe their responses if they selected logistical barriers and/or other barriers. To begin, by looking at the responses as a whole, a significant number of 51.7% out of the total 94 responses indicated that there was a lack of knowledge at Monmouth University which they believe prevented the SDGs from being implemented. Next, the second most significant barrier is the pre-existing curriculum rules that prevented the implementation of the SDGs, and this accounted for 26.3% of responses. The logistical and other barrier options were the smallest portion of the total responses, as logistical barriers received 9.3% and the others had 12.7%. This slide looks at the barriers broken down by academic school, and the same trends are evident here as seen in the overall responses.
Through the data we collected, we determined that there is a general lack of knowledge of the SDGs across all academic schools, and that seems to be the greatest interference with the promotion of the SDGs in curriculum. So the academic schools that had the most prevalent knowledge gaps of the SDGs were the School of Science and the School of Nursing and Health Studies. And the School of Science also had one of the highest rates of having no courses that were reflective of the SDGs. Another significant barrier also proved to be the lack of flexibility in curriculum. And overall, the number of SDG-related courses at Monmouth University remains low. And little is being done at Monmouth University to take serious action on accomplishing the SDGs, and that is evident through the lack of training of the SDGs for curriculum development, as an overwhelming 90% of the participants in this study indicated that there was no training.
It is essential to point out limitations within our report. Our report did not reflect the entire faculty at Monmouth University, as we only acquired responses from 122 faculty members at Monmouth University, while Monmouth University currently has around 700 full-time and part-time faculty members. Additionally, it is not known how equal the representation of the academic schools was in this report to the number of faculty that are currently working in these academic schools. Furthermore, the open-ended barrier responses were recoded and interpreted by us. There is always the probability of bias when interpreting qualitative data. We preserved objectivity by both interpreting the the trends within the qualitative data individually, and then coming together to debate on the trends that were identified.
In terms of recommendations, it is crucial that Monmouth University provides yearly educational training of the SDGs to all faculty and academic departments. This is thought to be an effective strategy because there is currently a lack of SDG training at Monmouth University. Also, the data collected in this report indicates a high rate of unfamiliarity with the SDGs. The training will provide faculty members education on the SDGs and why they are so dire to the future of our planet. Additionally, there were steep knowledge gaps within the School of Science and the School of Nursing and Health Studies. Therefore, these trainings must be divided by each academic school and should focus on why the SDGs are relevant to that academic school. If faculty can make connections as to why SDGs are relevant to their academic school, then they may be more inclined to implement them.
Furthermore, these trainings should also provide faculty members with suggestions and tools on how the education of the SDGs can be implemented into their courses. While it was identified that the limited space within the curriculum was an obstacle to integrating SDGs education within a particular academic school, there are ways that SDG education can be taught without changing the entire curriculum. For instance, faculty members should be trained on how to connect their class teachings to the SDGs. It is understandable that there is a strict curriculum with some academic schools. However, for this curriculum to be relevant, there needs to be applications of teachings to the real world. These real-world applications can be centered around sustainable practices and thus encompassing the SDG education. Educating on the SDGs does not have to be time-consuming or a high-cost practice. It is simply about making small shifts to help students draw connections between their studies and the fragile world that we live in today. Finally, training should be assessed by follow-up surveys at the end of each academic year. This will give the faculty the opportunity to report on the effectiveness of the SDGs training. While this report was done at Monmouth University, we highly encourage that other educational institutions conduct similar reports to assess the implementation of the SDGs, as it is essential to educate on these goals so that they can be accomplished by 2030.